This is ABC 7 News at 7, your Suncoast News. We're here for you.
Hi, I'm Ray Collins. Alan Cohn is back tomorrow night. Our top story, in the past 35 days in Sarasota County, there have been 38 apparent heroin overdoses, and 7 of those were fatal. Some say the state's crackdown on pill mills a few years ago led to an epidemic. Addiction experts say heroin is often mixed with other more dangerous drugs, such as fentanyl.
Fentanyl is frightening because it is 100 times more potent than heroin is. And in fact, there's a version of it called carfentanil that we're now seeing that is 10,000 times more potent than heroin and is actually intended as an animal tranquilizer. It is not intended for human consumption.
Sheriff deputies are now carrying Narcan, which can reverse the effects of an overdose, at least long enough for the patient to get to a hospital. Progress can be painful. Construction to widen the US 41 bypass in Venice is slowing down traffic and hurting some local business as well. This $16 million state project has been in the works for years. It will expand the bypass from 4 to 6 lanes. Nearby merchants say they feel the pinch.
I thought about relocating myself, and I looked at the cost of doing that, and I thought, well,
just to get back to a status quo condition where traffic flows in a relatively efficient manner, our section needs to be expanded to accommodate the traffic that's been added from the north and from the south.
Well, the work should be complete finally in less than 2 years. Also in Venice, no swimming now around the pier. Sarasota County health officials say water quality tests show unsafe levels of bacteria. The beach is open, but the water is now off limits. More test results are due back by tomorrow. The future of red light cameras is up for a vote in the city of Bradenton soon. The city installed cameras at 7 intersections about 7 years ago, and since then the number of tickets at those locations has tripled. But the number of accidents has remained the same and in fact went up a bit last year.
We are not out there to run check marks and boxes to see how many citations we can write or how many people we can catch doing bad things if catching them doesn't make us any safer.
City Council will vote on renewing the contract with the red light company on August the 15th in the city of Bradenton. Demolition begins soon on the old Manatee Technical College. The campus on 34th Street West shut down 3 years ago. The school moved to a new campus out on State Road 70 back in 2013. Plans for the area include a park or perhaps a new school. Parrish could open a new high school in 3 years. It could be located off Erie Road, where the district currently owns 100 acres of land. The school could help relieve overcrowding in the Palmetto, Lakewood Ranch, and Braden River areas. The cost of the new school, it's not cheap, about $82 million. A half-penny sales tax on the ballot this fall could help cover the costs. Well, call it a sign of the times, not a good sign either. Local church leaders are being trained on how to deal with active shooters. The Manatee County Sheriff's Office had its first ever class called Safety Plans for Houses of Worship today. The event drew some 40 people. Last year, a man shot and killed 9 people in a church in South Carolina. Crime experts say it's important to have an emergency plan in place.
They need to think about what if it happens here. And then they need to also prepare the congregation and have some type of plan in place to act upon just in case the what if happens.
Deputies are offering to visit area churches for free to make suggestions on how to increase their security. For the first time in 32 years, this month's primary will include a ballot question, and the issue is all about solar power. If the amendment is approved, homes and commercial properties that use solar power or other renewable energy can get tax exemptions. Supporters say it'll promote solar energy and create jobs.
When people try to do the right thing by installing solar panels on top of their roofs, they shouldn't be taxed for doing the right thing. And so this allows us to extend that beyond residential to all residential and commercial properties.
The amendment requires 60% approval. Speaking of the sun, not a lot of solar power today to be had, Bob Harrigan.
Yeah, it wasn't very good today. The beaches were kind of cloudy throughout much of the morning. Early afternoon, we're starting to see a little bit of that sunshine right now, but it's at such a low angle, it doesn't really help as far as the solar panels are concerned. But nonetheless, we did get some sunshine this afternoon, some heavier showers and storms scattered about the Suncoast. You'll see that in a minute. Not everyone got the rainfall, but some areas picked up nearly 3 inches. This is the Casey Key webcam from this afternoon showing the clouds that were around as a result of a trough of low pressure in the Gulf of Mexico. And then notice as we get past the 5 o'clock hour, and we start to see that sun a little bit more prevalent there in the sky. And we'll see some shower and thunderstorm activity redevelop in the Gulf of Mexico overnight. And that rain could be heavy at times in some areas, say after 2, 3 o'clock. And continuing into the late morning here along the west coast. Now, that trough of low pressure is in the Gulf. Some models indicating it may stick around right through the weekend, too. So we'll stay in this pattern with morning showers and storms near the coast, and then the main focus inland in the afternoon and evening. Here's what I mean by the rainfall. It hit and missed some areas, getting really heavy rain right there at the north end of Longboat Key and south of Anna Maria Island, nearly 3 inches there. And that is Longboat Pass, and then 1.3 near Cortez, Northwest Braden, getting about an inch of rain in some areas. Right now, some high clouds around the airport. It's 88, the dew point 69, and the humidity at 53%. And the winds now, again, out of the west-southwest. The high today was near average at 90. And the low this morning was warmer than the normal at 78. We're going to see warmer than normal lows, too, for the next several days. Well, there's not much left of Earl as it made its way through Belize, and now it is just a tropical storm continuing to stay as a tropical depression here in the next day or so. Elsewhere in the tropics, we'll keep an eye on that area of disturbed weather in the northeast Gulf of Mexico. And one near San Juan, Puerto Rico doesn't have much of a chance as a result of some shear in the upper levels of the atmosphere. So tonight, this evening, looks good. Redevelopment after midnight, and then onshore flow will continue to favor morning showers near the coast and inland storms late in the afternoon. The extended forecast looks like this, a light chop for boaters tomorrow, and we will see a pretty good chance for those morning showers and storms around, Ray, and that usually brings a little bit more cloudiness in the forecast picture, too, throughout the daytime.
Once again tomorrow. Okay. Thank you, Bob. All right, still to come, what happens when growth in Florida leads to development near wetlands? More on this controversy next.
Need new windows? Buy direct from the factory. New South Window is having a sale. The more you buy, the more you save. Buy 4 windows, save 25%. Buy 6 windows, save 30%. Buy 8 or more windows and save 35%. How? Because New South owns the factory and you cut out the middleman. Award-winning, energy-efficient windows and doors installed with a lifetime warranty. New South Windows are made in Florida for Florida homes by Florida workers. Visit newsouthwindow.com or call now.
US Med has great news for anyone living with diabetes.
If you have Medicare, private insurance, or prescription drug coverage, US Med will ship a new glucose meter right to your home.
And shipping is free.
My new meter uses only a speck of blood, so it's less painful than my previous meter.
If you have Medicare, private insurance, or prescription drug coverage, you're covered with US Med. We're welcoming new patients, even if your current provider can't supply you anymore.
I don't even have to test on my fingers anymore. I can test on my hand or forearms, and it's more accurate than my old meter.
So call US Med today, and you'll have a choice of 2 great meters.
One that actually speaks your results, or a meter so small it fits on the bottle of strips.
Act now, and US Med will include a free prescription discount card. We'll also send you a free diabetes cookbook. This is your opportunity.
So call US Med today.
You'll be glad you did.
ABC 7, your Suncoast News. We're here for you weeknights at 5.
It's a phrase you might not have heard before, mitigation banking. It's not about money, or is it? More on this now from our Kate Flexter. Kate?
Thanks, Ray. Mitigation banking is a complex topic, but it has to do with walking the line between preservation and development, a topic that's a top priority here in Sarasota.
Nearly 1,000 people flock to Florida every day, choosing the Sunshine State as their new home. But as the population grows, so does the need for development. That need creates one of Sarasota's biggest conflicts, preserving the area's natural beauty while making room for an expanding population. A conflict that's made headlines in the form of protests and even litigation. Former Sarasota County Commissioner John Thaxton says it's something to pay attention to.
We're nearing the place where the decisions on whether to preserve an intact natural system or not will be over.
An annual survey found that Sarasotans agree, ranking population growth and overdevelopment as two of the top concerns for the county.
There is a point where, growth done in the wrong fashion will overtake the various amenities that cause people to want to move into an area.
To strike the balance between development and preservation, environmental protection agencies created a system called mitigation banking. It allows developers to build on certain wetlands by improving others that fall within the same watershed. Environmental consultant Carrie McNutt says it's a process that really works.
I think the regulations that are in place by all the different agencies probably have, we probably have more wetland protection in the state of Florida than probably anywhere else in the U.S.
McNutt says development in Florida is inevitable, and so is impact on wetlands.
You're going to have wetland impacts with some of that stuff. To avoid every single wetland is impossible.
But she says mitigation is a smart way to go about it, with an extensive permitting process that can take years to go through. Environmentalist Glenn Compton of Manasota 88 disagrees.
Mitigation banking allows for developers to de-emphasize the importance of wetlands and destroy them and try to relocate them someplace else.
He says many of these mitigation properties wouldn't be developed anyway.
We're really not finding that we're gaining anything by allowing for the destruction of wetlands in one area and the preservation of wetlands someplace else.
During his time in the county commission, Thaxton saw both sides to the story, approving several projects that involved wetland mitigation. Today, he says many of them are successes, but that's not always the case.
If it's used wisely, it can bring about positive change, but it's also very easy to abuse and has been abused quite often.
As you just heard, developers have to go through a complex permitting process for mitigation, getting approval on both the state and federal levels.
Quite a process. Thank you, Kate. Up next, our roundtable discussion. Stay with us.
Batteries Plus bulbs keep stacks of batteries for cars, cell phones, watches, plus light bulbs for lamps, can lights, and appliances right on hand. Did I mention we also repair smartphones? Batteries Plus bulbs. Trust the plus. Visit Batteries Plus bulbs today.
Attention, this is an important message for anyone who had an IVC filter placed to prevent blood clots from traveling to their heart or lungs. Did your IVC filter move, break, or cause organ damage? The FDA warns that IVC filters may cause serious complications, such as heart or lung damage, internal bleeding, even death. If you or a loved one suffered serious complications, call IVC Filter Helpline now. You may be entitled to compensation. IVC filters are designed to prevent blood clots. If your IVC filter moved or broke and you suffered heart or lung damage, internal bleeding, or if a loved one died as a result, call IVC Filter Helpline today. Our network of experienced attorneys is ready to fight for you. You'll pay nothing unless there's a recovery in your favor. Call today for a free confidential consultation. Don't fight this alone. Call IVC Filter Helpline now.
Please call 800-897-6764. That is 800-897-6764.
Whether you're a homeowner looking for a professional installation or a contractor looking for top quality products, Sarasota Glass and Mirror can meet your every need.
For 42 years, Sarasota Glass and Mirror has been the area's premier supplier and installer of quality glass products for your home or business. As an authorized PGT WinGuard dealer, we know how to protect your home with everything from the PGT WinGuard impact-resistant windows and doors to shower enclosures and decorative mirrors. The Sarasota Glass and Mirror team has the knowledge to tackle any project.
For more on tonight's topic, we've got Dana West of Environmental Consulting and Technology, and also former County Commissioner John Thaxton, who is now with the Gulf Coast Community Foundation. Thanks both for being here. Well, I would say, as if you're speaking to a third grade class, explain wetland mitigation, but as you said during the break, a third grade class still wouldn't understand this, right?
Yeah, I wouldn't explain this to a third grade class. There's just so many complexities that, and so many moving parts, it's difficult to understand, which is why you have such a variety of opinions on the outcomes of wetland mitigation.
So for the average person watching who says, I want to learn this, what the heck are they talking about on TV right now? How do you explain this? Wetland mitigation, Dana?
I think that what you have to realize is when
that there are times when there are unavoidable impacts to wetlands. You know, a wetland has to be filled to, whether it's to build a subdivision or a shopping center or widen a road or build a school or whatever it may be, there are circumstances where wetlands are physically impacted and all or a portion of a wetland is removed. And wetland mitigation is simply the act of trying to replace the values and functions provided by that area. And frequently that's done through trying to create new wetlands or preserve wetlands that may not be subject to preservation, to enhance wetlands that have been historically impacted, such that the overall net benefit has a positive contribution on wetland functions and values.
Is there a big example, John, you can think of that happened here on the Suncoast that involved wetland mitigation?
Well, before I go there, let me just kind of qualify what Dana said. I think that all wetland impacts are, quote, avoidable. You could avoid them. In other words, you could build a shopping center completely around a wetland, not touch the wetland, and isolate it. But the result of that would be a diminished value and function of that wetland. So while the direct impacts are avoidable, the indirect impacts may not be avoidable, and that's the motive for the wetland mitigation concept, in that we can take those indirect impacts, we can mitigate them somewhere else and create an added benefit.
Are there times you think that wetlands do need to be encroached upon?
Oh yeah, there are. Assuming that the development is going to take place, and it's a big assumption that some people would argue, but once you reach that assumption, then you have to look for the next best scenario, which would be some sort of a mitigation scenario where you have a net gain. And that's oftentimes where it changes from a science to an art. And art is, you know, the beauty is in the eye of the beholder.
The whole idea of banking and credits sounds like a different world, but it's really all about land, and if I'll do this, if you'll do this. Dana's a little swapping going on.
Well, I think that's true, but I think you have to realize how it came about. You know, 20, 30 years ago, the more typical situation was someone, be it a public or a private landowner, that had a project that had unavoidable wetland impacts. And to physically impact a wetland, you need to look for a place to recreate a wetland. It may be a very small impact. It could have been hundredths of an acre or tenths of an acre of a wetland. And they would go elsewhere in their project and find a little corner to create a wetland. And that wetland, that new wetland's position in the ecosystem, you know, may cause it not to have very much benefit. And that wetland being managed by somebody who doesn't know or understand what's involved in the long-term maintenance of that wetland system may limit the outcome. Wetland mitigation banking really came about through the Society of Wetland Scientists and a number of other folks who said there has to be a better way. Why don't we look at it from an ecosystem approach and have large-scale wetland mitigation, and then as folks have small impacts elsewhere within a watershed or an ecosystem, they can come to the bank, they can come to this larger scale resource project and get credits from it. And so I think you have to understand that in the context.
Well, when I envision a wetland, personally, I picture a very marshy area that who would want to build on that? Or is that not what a typical wetland is?
Well, Sarasota County, first off, you need to understand, is a little bit different than a lot of the areas in the country in that we have these isolated ephemeral wetland systems naturally. So as opposed to a continuously connected wetland system that's wet 365 days out of the year and runs in a linear configuration, in Sarasota County we have these smaller pocketed wetlands that are only connected 2 to 3 months out of the year. Sometimes they're completely dry, and that is the natural state of that wetland system. So oftentimes through wetland mitigation, by going to banks where you have constantly wet, constantly interconnected wetland systems, the value and the function of those systems compared to those ephemeral systems that are occasionally isolated completely changes. Now, if you're a narrowmouth frog or some of the other species within Sarasota County that rely upon those dry, periodically dry wetland systems that are isolated, and now you're being mitigated to a continuously wet system, you're screwed.
Dana, I understand among the two counties, Sarasota and Manatee, one does a little better job. Is that safe to say?
Well, I think that both counties have some very, very dedicated scientists and regulators that work very carefully to try and protect the wetland and other natural resources of both counties. And frankly, both counties have county commissioners that are very focused on those issues. I think that Sarasota County has traditionally dedicated a greater level of resources and has a greater level of rigor in terms of their comprehensive plan and the resulting policies and rules that have come out of that than Manatee County traditionally has.
And I could say from firsthand experience, this is a really difficult task for a county commissioner to administer from the dais. There is a great deal of science, there is a great deal of art, there are discrepancies within the opinions that are voiced at the table, and to distill them, you know, at that moment when reviewing a development permit is the most difficult task.
Yeah. Now, there was an issue, and there is an ongoing issue involving Whole Foods at University around the Lockwood Ridge area. Is that not an example of what we're talking about here, about wetland mitigation? Not.
Well, let me get Dana off the hook on this one because he has, you know, contractual things,
okay.
You know, which is unfair to ask him.
Yeah.
I was a planning commissioner when that proposal was first offered some 15 years ago. It's been quite some time. I've forgotten most of it. But it was an example where it was described as a compromised hardwood wetland system, mostly a maple swamp. Again, an isolated system, and because of its isolation, its characterization was that its value and function was diminished. My opinion was that it was a functioning isolated hardwood swamp system and did meet the merits of the code to be preserved. And so there you had that conflict of, do we preserve it in situ, or do we allow the development to happen and preserve it in value, function, and acreage elsewhere?
I'd asked, go ahead, David.
Just very quickly, and we really came to this discussion tonight with the agreement that we wouldn't talk about that specific project because of pending litigation, et cetera. But I just want to clarify for the record that the situation John talked about, the rezoning for that particular parcel 15 years ago, is very, very different, both in terms of the development and the compliance with the comprehensive plan and what's being proposed than what we're debating today. But again, I would ask that that not be a subject.
No,
and I can only speak to 15 years ago. I have no idea what the existing permit says.
Right.
I haven't looked at it at all.
Is there an example, a larger example of wetland mitigation in Sarasota or Manatee that folks can say, oh, that I can see it now?
I think there are great examples out there. If you look at Palmer Ranch, if you look at Lakewood Ranch, and you know, these are large-scale projects which knew that there were going to be unavoidable wetland impacts in order to get infrastructure in place to be able to construct and connect to a roadway system and to do those sorts of things. There were going to be times when wetland impacts simply were not going to be able to be avoided. And through good master planning, good ecological planning, they set aside areas, they developed opportunities, they maintained the connectiveness. You know, one of the biggest problems we have is that John talked about leaving an isolated wetland sitting in a shopping center parking lot. You know, the values that wetland's going to provide 10, 20, or 100 years down the road are going to be diminished because it sits in a parking lot. When larger scale developments like Lakewood Ranch and Palmer Ranch can go through and maintain connectivity between various native habitats and various wetland systems, then the long-term values that those wetlands provide, whether it be to fish and wildlife, for example, will be much greater in the long term. And I think there's some great examples in Sarasota County.
And I can speak specifically to the Palmer Ranch one because I grew up on Palmer Ranch as a young child. And the old trunk ditch, or Catfish Creek, as some people know it as, was severely impacted by previous agricultural alterations. And what Palmer Ranch did, there was a stormwater engineer named Steve Swaw who reconstructed the system so that it would provide the value and function for both protection of the downwater estuarine, the uplands, and the freshwater systems within the ranch, and it provides excellent recreation and aesthetic opportunities for the residents within the ranch.
Well said. Thank you both for your time tonight, Dana and John. Thanks for being here. When we come back, we're going to talk about a very controversial issue right now on Siesta Key. Viewer Mail is next.
Hi, I'm Joan London, and if you're worried about your parent or a loved one living alone like I was, and you want reliable senior care information, then call A Place for Mom, the nation's largest senior living referral service. You'll get free information on assisted living, Alzheimer's care, nursing homes, even important financial information.
They had obviously researched every place, not just given me names. They found me a place for what she could afford, and it was magnificent.
We're now very confident that she's safe, and they just helped every step of the way. and I can't thank them enough.
So if you're struggling to find reliable senior living information, call A Place for Mom. This is a free service, and you can trust them to help you.
Call right now to get your free Senior Care Compass ebook. Find out about the 5 best-kept secrets on financing senior care and assisted living.
Call now, 800-290-0352. 800-290-0352.
It's Lincoln's summer sales event here at Alex Karras Lincoln. Drive a brand new 2017 Lincoln MKZ for only $299 per month, or a 2016 Lincoln MKX, Lincoln's premium sports utility vehicle, for $339 per month. We also have a great selection of certified pre-owned vehicles. Drive with the confidence of a 6-year, 100,000-mile comprehensive warranty and complimentary roadside assistance. Alex Karras Lincoln, family-owned and operated, and winner of the prestigious 2015 President's Award. We are located 2 miles north of the Sarasota-Bradenton Airport on US 41.
They took that stress and that tension when I was particularly feeling very bad after that nasty car accident, and it was such a relief to know that I didn't have to bear that burden alone, that I had help.
Our goal is to not just get a satisfactory settlement on their case. We want them up on their feet, happy again. They've gotten their life back.
Last night we talked about the increase in the homeless on Siesta Key. Some say they're attracted to the public showers, the grills, and the picnic tables. The Siesta Key Association is asking the county to help before tourists start staying away. And here's what you're saying. Jackie Bevlin says, I had to laugh out loud when they said Siesta Key would ask the government for assistance. Yeah, sure. They're doing a stellar job addressing the homeless issue right now in town. Build a shelter already, she says. Lois Eller writes, really need affordable housing in this city. Even if they get a minimum wage job, they still won't be able to afford housing. And Jimmy Dufresne writes, avoiding areas because of homeless isn't helping anybody. Talk to them, ask them why they're there. After all, they are human beings. If you want to comment, go to our Facebook page at facebook.com/news at 7. I'm Ray Collins. Alan's back tomorrow. We'll see you tonight at 11.